What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you an update of sorts to a video I made at the very beginning of this year, which is the results of my 2023 gaming predictions. And while there's still about 6 weeks left in this year, with one exception, I can definitively say I was right or wrong on all of these, and while there's a slim chance for that one that's up in the air, I sincerely doubt it's going to happen. But to catch everybody up, as I only had around 110,000-ish subscribers around the time I made that video, and the channel has more than doubled since then, I will link the previous video I am talking about down in the description below if you want to be weirded out by how exactly correct I got some of these and how hilariously wrong a couple others were. So first things first, we have Diablo 4, and I'm happy to say my prediction with this was pretty much correct. And that prediction was that it was going to have a very strong opening and then fall off the map more or less after a couple of months, which is essentially exactly what happened. It had an incredibly strong launch with a lot of love with its initial release, only for them to honestly bungle a few things in terms of the patch and the initial season, and a lot of the interest just tanked. And while they've certainly made some of that back up with Season 2, given the nature of video games and everything else that's released this year, they were not able to recover all of that, and they definitely would have lost some anyway. And while I do enjoy Diablo 4 even now, I've been having a fair bit of fun with the Season of Blood when I've been able to actually play it. It is nonetheless very much so the case that the conversation has moved on and Diablo 4 has been left behind. So I'm marking this one as correct. Now, for my second prediction, I had Starfield, and I'm happy to say I was also correct about how this panned out. And the prediction for this was it was going to be very, very polarizing. And while I personally enjoyed it a great deal, even all the way back in January, I was able to basically feel out exactly what was going to happen here, which is that this being a new IP from Bethesda that is more grounded in reality, but also lacks an inherent fan base like their previous franchises, and the mix mash of what expectations people would pour onto this game means that no one was ever going to be completely happy with it. For instance, I enjoyed the game, but even in my own review, which was pretty positive, I pointed out that a lot of the exploration was just not really compelling. So you wound up with a game that was very much so kind of right down the middle in a lot of ways. Some people loved it, some people really don't like that game at all. Though, regardless about your feelings on the matter, my prediction was correct, which is not the same thing I can say for this next one, which was Fallout news. That is to say, I predicted we were going to get some kind of news about the Fallout franchise this year, because, in my own words from that previous video, and honestly what I still feel like, is that Microsoft is not going to let that IP sit around for 10 years, or another 10 years I should say, after they paid so much money to acquire it. And I still think that they're almost certainly having conversations about when and where to expand that IP, which is probably the case for many franchises that they now also own with Activision. And while I still feel the same way, reality is we haven't gotten any of that news this year, so I was very much so wrong. Though this is the one where technically there's a little bit of a chance still. They often make a lot of announcements at the upcoming Game Awards, which is a couple weeks away, and while theoretically they could announce something there, I just sincerely doubt we'll see it. But again, not technically impossible, so for now I'm counting this one as wrong. And while I'd love to see New Vegas 2 get announced just as much as the next person, I'm not going to hold my breath for it. At least not this year. But switching gears a little bit, another prediction I was correct about was Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I'll admit, even I really didn't expect it to see the massive success that it did, but nonetheless, the prediction I made about it turned out to be very, very accurate, which is that the game would be great, it would be universally praised, but the back half of it would be a technical mess just the way Original Sin 2 was, because they did not test it in early access the exact same way they did with Original Sin 2. And while they have responded much faster and been able to clean a lot of things up, reality is they hit those exact same issues. But another part of that prediction I actually mentioned was that that was going to be the case and most people weren't going to care, which is also true. Because for all of the backlash they got for things like the epilogues and things in Act 3, they also got near universal praise otherwise. And this is because Baldur's Gate 3 is a huge game. It can take a lot of people a long time to go through it, especially if you're not familiar with the genre like myself, and even more specifically, all of Larian's previous games, for instance. Which means a lot of people will likely never reach the end to where those problems actually pop up, And in fact, I bet there are people watching this right now who still haven't made it to Act 3 to see those problems for themselves, which creates this unique situation where a game has serious problems towards the end, and while they are, again, to Larian's credit, being fixed much more quickly than they were with Original Sin 2, the game still received near universal praise, and rightly so. It's a great game. But in any event, with this prediction, I hit the nail on the head. Moving along, I saved the best for last, and this is the prediction that I got comically wrong. It was also the biggest prediction, which was what game will win Game of the Year. And right now, just to give an updated hope, or what I think should be Game of the Year, is Baldur's Gate 3, and it is not even close, which makes the fact that I got this next prediction so wrong that much more funny, as it didn't even make the nominees list, which is Hogwarts Legacy. So in my prediction video, I essentially said I think the IP is probably going to carry this for the most part, on top of the fact that the type of game Hogwarts Legacy is historically the exact type of game that has won almost every year for Game of the Year awards. So the prediction was not so much that the game would deserve to win Game of the Year awards, but that it simply would. And for a weird mixture of reasons, I'm happy that it's not going to. Again, it wasn't even nominated, so it is not possible at all. And while I'm sure many people will have their own reasons for feeling that way, for me, the reason I'm happy about it is that Hogwarts Legacy got just completely outshone in terms of quality by a game like Baldur's Gate 3, which is a genre that is so near and dear to me. So to see a game like that even have a chance at Game of the Year awards while smashing such an established IP like Harry Potter out of the books is really wonderful, which is honestly still pretty interesting, because I think if you're just talking raw sales numbers, I don't think anything did better than Hogwarts Legacy this year. It sold an insane amount of copies. But in spite of those sales, while there were parts of it I enjoyed quite a bit as somebody who read a lot of those books growing up, reality is that most of the game was a very formulaic open world that lacked any sort of choice and consequence, which brought the rest of the game down. So while it was fun, it had some pretty big flaws that I felt kept it from being a truly great game. And because of that, I'm happy to have been wrong about this particular one. I sincerely hope Baldur's Gate 3 wins Game of the Year because it deserves it. But that is pretty much going to do it for this video on how my predictions panned out. That said, I am looking forward to doing this again at the start of 2024, as I had quite a bit of fun with this. But in the meantime, down in the comments section below, I would love to hear about what you guys thought was going to happen this year that you were either correct about or wrong about, or what you think is going to happen next year. But in any event, 2023 was a wild year filled with a lot of ups and downs. It was huge for the channel personally, and we are not even done yet. Still got 6 more weeks to go. A couple more games I need to get in before I talk about my own personal game of the year and favorite games and ranking every game I've reviewed this year, for instance. So a lot of fun stuff yet to come. But that'll do it for today. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.